I don't think this will come as a surprise to many of you, but as a punk kid in high school, I used to be the class clown. My friends and I had an inside joke where they'd refer to me as LBT, lazy but talented. I became a national AP scholar while still a junior in high school, was named captain of the Scholastic Bowl team, and I was even voted in as the National Honor Society president, which didn't last long, all while floundering through my last 2 years of high school. Graduation day came. I was so irresponsible that I showed up after work in my sweaty Farm Fresh uniform, rocking a pair of Dr. Scholl's clogs. The only reason I made it to graduation was because my buddy's parents had picked me up and lent me the robes of my friend's older brother. Really, I was just a hot mess. LBT. I wore it as a badge of honor, thinking it made me special to be lazy and intelligent. I would later find out that the joke was on me. The next 7 years were spent grinding my pride to dust. I barely graduated college and finished a blue-collar apprenticeship where I was the butt of every joke. I was not a talented tradesperson, and I often had to work twice as hard as my peers just to get the same result. In fact, I was almost washed out of the program and was only spared because a merciful welding school instructor saw that I was busting my tail with a good attitude. Irony at its finest. Recently, I came across a speech that Jeff Bezos gave at Princeton's graduating class of 2010, and it really put everything into perspective for me. In the speech, Jeff tells the graduates a story about how his grandfather told him it's harder to be kind than it is to be clever. Jeff goes on to talk about the differences between gifts and choices.
My grandfather was driving, and my grandmother had the passenger seat. She smoked throughout these trips, and I hated the smell. At that age, I'd take any excuse to make estimates and do minor arithmetic. I'd calculate our gas mileage, figure out useless statistics on things like grocery spending. I'd been hearing an ad campaign about smoking. I can't remember the details, but basically the ad said, every puff of a cigarette takes some number of minutes off of your life. I think it might have been 2 minutes per puff. At any rate, I decided to do the math for my grandmother. I estimated the number of cigarettes per day, estimated the number of puffs per cigarette, and so on. When I was satisfied that I'd come up with a reasonable number, I poked my head into the front of the car, tapped my grandmother on the shoulder, and proudly proclaimed, "At 2 minutes per puff, you've taken 9 years off of your life." I have a very vivid memory of what happened next. And it was not what I had expected. I expected to be applauded for my cleverness and my arithmetic skills. "Jeff, you're so smart. You had to have made some tricky estimates. Figure out the number of minutes in a year and do some division." That's not what happened. Instead, my grandmother burst into tears. I sat in the back seat, didn't know what to do, while my grandmother was crying. My grandfather, who'd been driving in silence, pulled over onto the shoulder of the highway. He got out of the car and came around and opened my door and waited for me to follow. Was I in trouble? My grandfather was a highly intelligent, quiet man. He had never said a harsh word to me, and maybe this was to be the first time. Or maybe he would ask that I get back in the car and apologize to my grandmother. I had no experience in this realm with my grandparents, and no way to gauge what the consequences might be. We stopped beside the trailer. My grandfather looked at me, and after a bit of silence, he gently and calmly said, "Jeff, one day you'll understand that it's harder to be kind than clever." What I want to talk to you about today is the difference between gifts and choices. Cleverness is a gift, Kindness is a choice. Gifts are easy. They're given after all. Choices can be hard. You can seduce yourself with your gifts if you're not careful. And if you do, it'll probably be to the detriment of your choices. How will you use your gifts? What choices will you make?
I love this story because it really hits home and bears an incredible piece of wisdom. In the long run, our choices matter far more than our gifts or circumstances. Our character and choices are what define us and will ultimately be the things weighed in the balance. Which is why I believe the Bible tells us it's foolish to compare ourselves with each other. In the moment, you might take pride in performing better than your peers, like I did when I prided myself on my intelligence rather than cultivating hard work and discipline and good habits. Put simply, we shouldn't underestimate the impact of our decisions and habits. Over the long run, our habits have a compounding effect and will be the determining factor in our lives. So we must keep our heads down and focus on tending to our responsibilities rather than celebrating or mourning what we have or don't have. Fish tankers, I leave you with this. Don't get high on your own supply. Boom. Sheesh. Over the long run, our habits will be... My brain is foggy, baby. Baby! Can you bring me a cup of water? I know, but my brain is so foggy, I can't focus, baby. No, can you bring it to me? No, honey, I got my mic set up where it needs to be. I love you. I love you. Thank you. Boom. Boom.